What's up, guys? Welcome to Operation B, the podcast. I am your host, Jamie Thurber, and I am here to take you on a journey of deepening, of expansion, of understanding more about who you are and why you're here and how to operate in an optimal way that allows you to do what you want to do, feel how you want to feel, take care of yourself truly, and support everything that your heart desires. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Operation B podcast. This is Jamie, your host. Thank you for being here, and I hope wherever you are, you're having a good day. Thanks for taking time to sit with me, and today we're going to talk about something that I probably should have talked about way many episodes ago, but that's okay. And maybe I have touched on it a little bit now that I think about it, but we're going to go a little deeper today about this. What is the difference between doing and being, at least in the concept of the way I discuss it, okay? So, things used to be Operation Do in my world, right? You know this. Everyone's aware. Operation Do was in correlation with get shit done, with hyperproductivity. Like, I literally have a course called Superhuman Productive. It is still very good content. All the content in my Operation Do library is amazing. It is helpful. It is all still great. And there's another side of the coin that I did talk about and touch on and live to an extent in parts of that era, we're going to call it. But now it's just drastically different. And it's taken me time to really digest what that means, which is why you didn't hear from me for a while. The reason I took quite a break is because I was still making sense of this shift. And also it was scary, and I didn't know if I could really do it. And I didn't know if I could do it and still make money and still provide, and, for my clients and myself and my family and all the things. Right? So it is possible, friends. I think that this is going to be more of almost like a list I'm going to give you. But when I say doing, I mean the lists. It's funny that I said this is going to be a list, but you'll see what I mean. Like a pro and con. Where are my Gilmore Girls at? We're going to do it very pro and con style. And honestly, not even pro and con. It's just the comparison, just a difference to kind of make it more clear to you what I mean by the different ways of living. Because here's the thing, there are still times that it's important and necessary for me to click on the doing version of myself. The difference is now that I can control it and I can turn it on when I need to and turn it off again. Where before I didn't know any other way to be until I fell down and had no other choice but to sit. And even when I was sitting, I was still doing things. I was making lists. I was doing Pinterest. I was, making graphics for the business. I was still always talking to the team. I was still always doing things, even though outwardly I felt like I was being relaxed or whatever. I was not. So I had to unlearn a lot. And so I kind of want to show or teach you. I feel like I should have a whiteboard behind me and do a presentation, but I think you'll catch the drift of this. The difference between when I lived in the place of constantly doing, and that's where I hung my hat, versus the place of being. Now, side note, there was a time, I took a break for a year. Now, before that, there was the time of, what was it? 2 years maybe, where I did talk a lot about becoming unbusy and how busy was not a badge of honor. And I had really changed around the way I was navigating life, but it was still, even my quote unquote downtime was still doing. My system was not actually getting to rest and to heal. And honestly, to digest. A lot of us have digestion issues and we wonder why. It's because we never stop moving, and our body needs to be in a state of rest and digest in order to not only digest food, but emotions and events and stimulus and all those things. So anyway, oh my goodness, sorry. I got my hair stuck in my mouth, guys. I was flipping my hair around over here. So, doing often felt like and feels like urgency. It often feels like motivated by others or the potential judgment of others or how you may look to others. So the doing was a place of like, I should, they expect me to, they want me to, they're motivating me to. So the lot of the pressure was outside of myself. It wasn't my own, it wasn't led by, the root of it wasn't led by the way I wanted to do it. It was the way I was positioned to or thought it, So it was like urgency, motivated by others, pressure from the outside of self, which is not necessarily a great thing when it comes to trying to, not on a daily basis, not on a constant basis. I spent the majority of my doing disassociated. So let's talk about that for a second. I would often shut down all physical, which I've talked a little bit about, but all physical and emotional feelings towards my behavior while I was in the state of doing, while I was in the state of what I recall or refer to as hyperproductivity, or now I know as hypervigilance, which is not positive. But I would check out and I would go into like beast mode. People say beast mode. I'd go into the zone, but I'd be completely disconnected from what I was physically and mentally feeling. I would be with you. I would say all the words. I'd be doing all the things, but I'd be ignoring hunger cues. I'd be ignoring a sensation to stand up. I have a standing desk and I'd never used it. I do now, but I didn't then. Like, I would ignore the need to go to sleep. I would ignore all these things because I was in a disassociated space that was filled with pressure and expectation of outside, trying to, do said thing. And that's what the focus was. The doing factor also, when I'm talking about this, I kind of mean as a way of life. Also had a lot of unrealistic or unreachable expectations that I placed on myself. They weren't from other people. I had very unrealistic expectations of myself. And I know I've said this somewhere before, but I remember a time when my therapist asked me, would you ask anyone else to do that? And I was like, no, that would be mean. And she's like, do you realize what you just said? And I was like, no. I said, it would be mean of me to expect that of someone else. And she was like, yeah, but you expect that and more of yourself. And I'm like, oh, because it was more than the average person should be doing. And just because I have a gift of getting a lot of things done in a small period of time, which still does exist, it's just different. But then I was doing it in a place that wasn't, always so healthy for my system. So it also had a lot of anxiety involved in it. It also had a lot of fear. And so what I mean when I say fear, kind of fear and scarcity. So I was motivated by being enough. I was motivated by doing enough. I was motivated by being seen enough. I was motivated by the fear of missing out, the fear of not having everything in all the places it needed to be so I could be successful, the fear of not being successful, the fear of not getting shit done the way that I am able to, which then I felt like I had to do it that way. And that is a place of scarcity. That's not a place of abundance. When that's where you're operating and like everything I just listed is your motivator, that's not an abundant place to live. That it really isn't. It's a place of trading. I don't know. It's like a weird trade that goes on during that headspace. But it's not healthy. And it's like you're making this trade with yourself, and it's not healthy, but you're doing it anyway because it's like this ugly cycle that you're just stuck in. And you're like, okay, if I do it like this, then I'll get that. And it's just kind of the way that we think it's supposed to go. And it's just not realistic, and it's not healthy long term as far as being able to be sustainable by decades, right? When I say long term, I did it for a long time, but I mean decades. It's also just not the way I want to live my life. So let me just preface by that, and you guys understanding, like, to each their own. What I know to be true, though, is the amount of rewarding and calm that I feel in my system now is like what I thought was rewarding and committed before doesn't even begin to compare to how I feel now, is I guess what I'm trying to get at. There's a drastic difference there in how we choose to show up every day and what we allow ourselves to be. Have the courage, that's kind of the word I was looking for, is like to live in a place of being. It takes a lot of courage because you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to operate outside of the status quo. You have to be willing to trust. And then, as kind of like how I had fear and scarcity were kind of like together, I have trust and abundance are still together. And that's one of the hardest things about abundance, I believe, is trusting that if you do the right stuff, your life is going to work itself out in your favor. And when I trust that, it always works. When I go to a place of fear, it doesn't. And to trust something that you don't have certainty around takes a lot of courage. To live differently than others takes a lot of courage. To make a change in your own life takes a lot of courage. So I think the act of being takes a lot of courage. And the difference is I'll say when I'm in the act of doing, typically that pressure it would stifle my creativity in a lot of ways. It was when I was the most creative was when I gave myself space to just kind of mosey and meander around the house and stuff, and then the stuff would hit me. That's also why people say that they get their most creative thoughts in the shower, in the car, doing the dishes, things like that, because you're present in the moment and your brain's able to just kind of do its own thing because you're doing like a mundane, easy task, driving. I get a lot of my creativity when I'm driving because when you're doing those things I just listed, you're in a state of being most of the time. And that's why your creativity can flow, and that's why the ideas flow, and the ability to just kind of know what you need to do flows, whereas we're often stifled by feeling like, what do I need to do? Oh, I don't want to forget that. No, I want to forget this. Like, that is not that urgency, that is so harsh on our system. And it prevents us from ever being able to really look around and realize where we are. I know in practices with my coach, one of the most beneficial things she ever told me about being, and I do this often, anytime I start to feel anxious or like I'm not present, we do gravity. Because I look around the room, there's plants behind me, there's a coffee cup, there's a little Boston Terrier, there's a timer, there's a dog sleeping, like you're present in the moment, but you can feel the gravity where your body hits whatever it's sitting on. Like when you're standing, you can feel the weight of your feet on the ground, and that's gravity. The weight of your arms hanging to the side of your body, and that's gravity. The weight of your hair touching your face, that's gravity. Right now I can feel the bottoms of my feet on this little ball thing I have under my feet that I like under my desk that I put my feet on. I can feel the gravity of my thighs and my butt and my tailbone touching all of the edges of my chair. I can feel the gravity of my elbows touching the chair. Like, that's a presencing practice. That is a fucking game changer. FYI. Like, her showing me that, we still do it all the time. It is a game changer. So let's list the things that being is. It is self-led. No one can tell you how to be but you. And if they do, then you're not in a state of being. Slow. Your nervous system heals and operates optimally when you're moving in a conscious, slower fashion. When you're running around and creating all this anxiety your system can't process. Your brain's not acting as naturally as it wants. It's in a place of, oh, what do I need to do? Oh, here, that. Oh, don't forget. Oh, get this. Blah, blah, blah. And then it takes you so much time to come down. Like, just me doing that made my system go, whoa, what the hell? It takes time for you to come down from that. And if you don't ever give yourself a time to come down from that, you stay in that hyper vigilant, active anxiety space all day long as you interact through every single thing. And I know this because I've lived it and done it, and sometimes it still gets me, and sometimes I still do it, and at the end of the day or in the middle of the day, I'm like, wait, what are we doing? I have to reset. Because it's not the optimal way to exist. Your body does not want to exist that way. We were not designed to exist that way. So back to our list. Self-led, slow, dilly-dallying. I love calling it that. But it's like meandering around and just letting yourself do what you know needs to be done because you're an adult and you need to learn how to trust yourself to do what needs to be done. And that's very important practice for self, for our soul, for our body, for that trust factor, for self-esteem, is to trust it. And when we do that, trust me when I tell you this, you'll be more productive and it'll feel good at the end of the day. So giving yourself the space to do what needs to be done without the pressure of like, you need to do this and that. It's like, dude, I'm not dumb. Like, I know what the hell needs to be done in my house today. Like, I'll do it. I often laugh when I think about how the drill sergeant part of me was basically talking to me as though I was an idiot. I had no idea what actually needed to be handled. Instead of trusting the fact that I'm a completely capable and trained adult in management of property, or not property, of items, and am able to do things because I'm not dumb and I can see and I know what to do. That trust in self is such a beautiful gift that being, the lifestyle of being, is able to give you. Less lists. So believe it or not, I make a lot less lists. I try, like, if I put multiple things on my to-do list for the day, I don't do them anymore. It just doesn't happen. If I put one or two things so I don't forget, it gets done every time. All the other stuff gets handled too that needs to be done. Again, I don't need to write down that I need to feed the dogs every day. Like, I know that I'm going to feed the dogs, that I need to answer my text messages. I know that I'm going to answer them, that I need to check my email. I know that I'm going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we freaking micromanage ourselves. That's what it is right there. We micromanage ourselves into a frenzy, and sometimes it's necessary. Like, that was my only state of existence because of my health for so long. I did not know I could do it another way. And so I'm not like dogging on any of you if you live in the doing space. Like, there's probably a reason. You're probably trying to survive something, or it's because that's what you've never thought that you could do it another way. And it's scary to try to do it another way. So don't feel shitty if you're living in the doing. I'm just giving this to you as examples of what life can be like and differently. Less expectations. What I mean when I say being has less expectations, we be because we are. We are because we be. Like, you're here. That's it. You as a human being, like, a lot of times our character or our identity will be attached to these expectations, and most of them are unnecessary and they're not ours to begin with anyways. So is your character traits, like your core values, an expectation that you need to set on yourselves? Or do you trust yourself to live true and full in your own character? So there doesn't need to be the expectation of that because, you're going to do that anyway. See what I'm saying here? A lot of courage, a lot of sovereignty, a lot of strength in the things that I'm sharing under the being category. So, self-motivated. And that's honestly probably one of the most valuable pieces here, is that your motivation to do the stuff that needs to be done when you're in a state of being is self-motivated. It's not outside motivated. It's not outside forces or pressure or people who tell you should do X, Y, Z this way, because that is not a state of being. It isn't. So self-motivated, and again, this is why a lot of people don't do this, because it takes courage. You have to bet on yourself. But let me tell you something, friend. If you're not betting on yourself, life is never going to turn out the way you want it to. So eventually you're just going to have to dive in and give yourself the courage and do the scary thing and bet on yourself, because that's just the truth. That's how you get to the other side. It just genuinely is. Next, presence. So when you're in the state of being, you're present. There's not, the sense of urgency isn't the same when you're in a present moment and you're doing the things that you're doing right in front, right in this moment, versus thinking of all the things that could go wrong, or all the things you forgot to do, or all the things that you did wrong because you're bad, and blah, 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 right? That's not present. Gravity, the gravity practice I just described, that's a presencing practice. Looking around the room, presencing practice. If you start to feel anxious and uncomfortable and you feel your heart rate go up, you can look around the room, look behind you, because that heart rate raising is your system thinking it's not safe. Looking around the room, reminding yourself that you're in a body, feeling the gravity. That's safe. There's not a lion behind me who's going to come and shoot and eat me. There's not a snake on the floor that's going to bite me, even though I have dreams about it all the time. That's a whole other conversation. So that's what presence is. And what do all of those things bring? Clearer thinking. So it allows you to actually be more productive because you're not wasting time navigating through a swampy, freaking muddy mess of thoughts and fears and things as much. You're just not. It allows you to be, when you're in being, clearer thinking just comes right along with it. Like imagine a dirty, mucky pond or swamp that you're walking through, and that's kind of the doing, and maybe you're moving real quick and you think this is great. But then imagine a beautiful, clear body of water where you can see everything and you're moving slowly and it's rewarding and it's self-motivated and you can be curious and there's time and space to do that and everything is still happening the way that it's supposed to. That's being. Now, I know that often when I talk about these different ways of doing life, people tend to say things like, wow, that's cool, Jamie, but that's not possible for me. One of my clients, I met her in one of my events. She came to the event. It was a live event here in St. Louis. She came mainly because a friend had told her about it, and she was like, oh, that'll be cool. We'll be spending time with a few cool people for the weekend. Let's do that. She didn't know anything about me. She didn't know what I was going to be doing. And I remember her sitting there listening to me talk about the group that I have, the Intentional Living Wheel, which I can link to you guys, but the wheel of intentional living and how every single thing fits into each other. Because again, I've been teaching this for years, almost a decade, guys. It's just the concept was more of a place of all those doing words. Now it's really, truly intentional living can come from a place of being, because we've built the difference. We've built the muscles and the ability for us to choose to do it in a way of being. So anyway, to the story, I was going through the intentional living wheel, and she rose her hand and said, I think that's great for you, but that's not possible for me. So flash forward, I think we're 6 years now she's been my client. She works way less time, makes way more money. She's on quite a journey to health. She travels a ton. Her whole life is different. And guess what she does? The wheel of intentional living. She does those things. She lives that way. A woman who was like, yeah, right, okay, that's cute, but not for me. She does it now. And we tell that story all the time because it's funny, because I know people have that reaction to me. But then there's also this little piece of most people that have this twinge that are like, wait, but could I do that? Is that possible for me? I wonder how I go down that journey. How do I go down that path? And often it's just a commitment. And then I wouldn't have been able to do it without help along the way. So I'm a firm believer in coaching. Obviously, I am a coach and I have coaches, and I've always had coaches. Since I started my company, I've had coaches. So they've helped me through, I don't know, probably a dozen people, I guess, maybe more, have helped me down the pathway of me getting to the place that I am now. And I currently have 2 coaches, and a lot of advisors, because I feel like that's how we continue to grow. And that's a beautiful, way to keep challenging ourselves and keep reaching for things that feel more true for us, feel more doable. And this place of being, it's just beautiful, guys. And I know that I'm not even completely all the way and drenched in it yet. I know it's just going to get better. I just know it. So my hope is just that this episode gave you maybe a little, just a little desire, maybe just a little curiosity to start thinking about some of these things. If you don't follow me on social media, give me a follow, because especially on Instagram stories, I share a lot of these little, there's a lot of really great pages about becoming unbusy and living more present and stuff like that. And I share their content a lot, and it just gives you a moment to think. It brings you back to the moment. I also share a lot of wildlife stuff because it also is a presencing tool. When you watch a penguin walk across the room, like, you're present. When you watch the water flow, like, it's those things. So I share a lot of that stuff on Instagram, and then also on Facebook and TikTok, but mainly Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, those are ways that I get the daily reminders. That's ways I surround myself with that, versus the, how many tasks did you do today? How did it, if you don't want it, this is all, how bad do you want it? Like, that kind of shit. I don't fucking see that content anymore at all. No, thank you. Love you. Do your thing over there. Keep your yelling to yourself. I'm good. Surround yourself with the things that you want to embody, and that's what I do. Pretty beautiful things, yarn related things that I'm definitely into these days. Definitely a crocheting monster, and I love every minute of it. Those are other things you can do to bring yourself into, like, the being presence. It's like presencing hobbies like coloring, drawing, crocheting, knitting, cross-stitching, things like that, putting puzzles together, stuff where you're not on your phone or your computer and you're in the moment with your hands doing the thing, and you have to pay attention to the thing that you're doing. It brings you and it brings your whole system into a different state. And I'll just tell you what, game changers, guys. I've been coloring forever. I always do. I love coloring mandalas. It's very relaxing. I just got a new book from Tony for Christmas, and I can't wait to dive into it. And the crocheting, it's really my jam. My therapist actually just started learning to crochet, and she told me, she was like, okay, now I get it. I really get it. She's like, I knew everything you said was accurate, but now I've been doing it, and it is so good, and I'm so happy. And I was like, dude, I told you. It's amazing. So anyways, guys, as always, if you enjoyed this message, please let us know, share it, tag us, and leave us a review if you haven't already. And until next episode, we'll see you then. Bye. Thank you for listening to Operation B, the podcast. To support this message and to support the show, please make sure that you like, follow, and share the podcast wherever you enjoy listening. And be sure to leave us a review on iTunes. Thank you for being here, and see you next time.